All right, welcome guys. So I have missed some vocabulary words. I'm not sure which ones we did. I think we did diseases, microbiology, microbe, pathogen, but I have missed virus, bacteria, antibiotic, protozoa, fungi, parasite, algae, and epidemic. So if you will, pause the video, get those copied down. Some of them, like the longer ones, like fungi, you can go ahead and shorten. Others are small enough you can write them yourself. So pause the video, get these copied down, and we'll get started. We're going to save pandemic and influenza for another day. So pause this. And there's another page too. We have algae, which you're definitely going to need to shorten. Epidemic, pandemic, and influenza. If you will, copy these down. Like I said, shorten this one for sure. Okay, we're going to get started with our video lecture on fungi. So we are headed to this page right here. It's our fungus notes on this side, and then we have a little comparison chart that I'm going to ask you guys to fill out and do on your own. But let's get started with that lecture. So a couple lectures ago, we talked about viruses and bacteria. Super exciting. I hope you've learned by now that a virus is a non-living, semi-parasitic, if you want to think of it that way, organism that needs a host to survive. While a bacteria is living, it's much larger than a virus. You could see a bacteria underneath a light microscope. You would not be able to see a virus under a light microscope. You would need to go to a more high-powered electron microscope. Viruses need that host cell in order to survive. Bacteria do not. Viruses spread, and I'm actually going to make another video on it, by taking over and hijacking the protein system of a cell, the protein building system of a cell. But today we're going to study fungus, which are just a little bit cooler than bacteria and viruses. So here we are on fungi. Very exciting. I love mushrooms, love to eat them, but that is just one example of a fungus. Other examples of fungus are yeast and mold. Here's a little joke for you. Why did the mushroom go to the party? Because he was a fun guy. Very funny, right? Here's what you need to copy down. Remember, you should be writing everything that's underlined. So fungi come in all shapes and sizes. Some fungi are mushrooms, others are types of molds, and others still are so small that you need a microscope to see them, such as yeast. So yeast, the scientific name is Saccharomyces cerevisiae, and we actually utilize yeast in a lot of our processes. So we use yeast to make our bread rise. We use yeast in the fermentation of wine and beer, and there's another thing we ferment, like ciders and stuff like that. But we use that to actually create the alcohol or the ethanol in the water or grape juice or whatever it is that they're using to create the drink. So it's very useful. We use them a lot. Like I said, pause it when you're done. When you're ready to go, you can unpause it. Fungi, unlike plants, cannot make their own food, so instead they get their nutrients from dead plants and animals. Fungi are classified as heterotrophs, which means that they do need to consume their food, but they're also, if you further classify them even more, they're decomposers, which again means that they break down dead plants and animals. You often see fungi in the woods and in damp, shady places, such as a rotting log, mold. You find it on decaying food, right? Bread is very common. And as they don't need chlorophyll, or they don't contain chlorophyll, they can't make food from sunlight. So mushrooms are not photosynthetic. They don't make their own food. We wouldn't classify them as autotrophs. They are 100% heterotrophs, which means they need to get their nutrients from something else. They can't make it themselves. Because they don't have chlorophyll, mushrooms are very rarely green. There are a couple species of mushrooms that are green, but you can find mushrooms in the whole rainbow of colors. I have a friend who I used to work with. Her name was Liz, and she used to be a kind of like a camp leader in the woods. She would lead students on camp, kind of scientific, outdoorsy adventure things, and she had the goal to eat the rainbow of mushrooms. So she searched and searched and searched for all these different colors of mushrooms, and she said that green was the hardest to find. And I asked her why. I said, that's funny, like I would expect a green mushroom. And she said, actually no, because remember, they don't do photosynthesis, so they don't have the chlorophyll, as in they don't have those green chloroplasts, so many of them are not actually green. Funguses can be nasty boogers to us as well. They can cause diseases in both plants and animals. P. infestans caused the potato blight, which resulted in the Irish potato famine in 1840s. Around 1 million people died from starvation. This was such a devastating event that people would actually commit small petty crimes so that they could go to jail so they could get food, right? Because people were starving. There's more to it than this blight or this fungus came in and killed all the potatoes. Part of the susceptibility to this fungus was that the potato variety of species that they used was all the same, so there was no genetic resistance to it. Once it got to one, it got to all of them. Another example of some diseases caused by fungi are athlete's foot and ringworm. If you've ever had ringworm, it's on your skin, and it's like a little dot, and then there's a ring around it, and then there's a ring around it, and it's kind of itchy. Same with athlete's foot, pretty itchy, not with the ring though. Those are common in people like wrestlers. When I was in high school, wrestlers would often get athlete's foot or ringworm, but that's because of their contact with each other. And then athlete's foot is often caused in athletes because they're wearing the dark, damp shoes all the time, and if they're not being properly sanitized or properly cleaned on a regular basis, fungi can grow inside the shoe, then in turn growing on or in your body. We do have some benefits of fungi, so they're not all bad. Alexander Fleming noted that bacteria didn't grow in an area surrounding penicillin mold. He guessed that the mold produced something that killed the bacteria. This is actually how our modern-day antibiotics was discovered. Antibiotics only works on bacterial diseases, not viruses. We talked, if you were in class with me, a lot about how we could not use an antibiotic to treat a viral infection, right? But the antibiotics that we do use today is created or was created. Now they do it in more of a lab setting, but it's created by a penicillin mold that releases some kind of toxin that kills the bacteria. If you look over on the left-hand side of the screen, you actually see a little drawing of that experiment that Fleming did. Those small circles are your bacteria colonies. The mold is right there. As you can see, none of the bacteria colonies grew near the penicillin mold, suggesting that there was something that the mold was creating that killed the bacteria. Fungi act as decomposers, returning dead plants and nutrients to the soil. So fungi are very, very helpful in terms of an environmental standpoint. If you have a lot of fungi, you're going to be creating nice, nutrient-rich soil. Okay, so it's really part of the cycle, right? In science, and we'll learn more about this, science, everything is a cycle. So it starts in one place, and then it goes around, and eventually it'll come back. And fungi and bacteria are both decomposers, and they're so important to the environment because they are taking those dead organisms and breaking down their nutrients and returning it to the ground so that the process can start over, right? You need nutrients to grow things. Things grow, and then they die, and then decomposers decompose them. Their nutrients go back in the soil, and then new things grow again. It's all a cycle. Like I said, yeast is used in bread baking and also in brewing beer, wine, and soy sauce. That was the one I was forgetting. Fungi are also used to flavor cheese, like I apparently don't know my cheeses very well, but Roquefort is my best guess at how to pronounce that cheese. Okay, so that is the end of your notes on on fungi, which is actually a whole kingdom, right? So your plants, animals, and fungi, and your kingdoms. And there might be a couple more there too that I'm missing. Why the separate classification is because fungi actually have this material called chitin in their cell walls, which is very significant. So some animals, this same material, the same molecule, is found in the exoskeleton of bugs, of like ants and if you think of like invertebrates such as crabs and horseshoe crabs and those hard animals, so like ants, bees, anything that really crunches, spiders, when you crunch down on it, they all have chitin in their walls or chitin, and fungi do as well. The second part of your assignment for today, along with filling out these notes and listening to my lecture, is going to be completing this Venn diagram. You're going to take these options right here, and you are going to classify them into the correct classification. Okay. You might have to Google some of these. Most of them we went over, like used in baking would be fungi. Some are going to repeat, like parasites. Parasites is actually going to be one of our ones in the middle because they can all be parasitic. Right? So is genetic material, right? So all of these are going to go into the different circles on your diagram. Remember, if you're looking at this diagram, the very middle one corresponds to all three. This one right here is, you would put something that classifies as both a virus or bacteria. This one, both virus or fungi. This one, both fungi or bacteria. And then things out in here would be all bacteria, out here all virus, and out here all fungi. Right? If you have any questions, email me. If not, when you finish with this, you're going to take a picture of your sheet as always, and then you're going to submit it as your file for credit today. I hope you had a fantastic day. Have a great Labor Day weekend. Enjoy the sunshine, get outside, and be sure to tell me all about the science that you see when you return. Have a great day.